Hello! Today, World Socionic Society interviews Greg Fetz. Hey Greg, how are you?
Hello, how's it going?
It's going well over here. So, you're number two out of four interviews I'll be doing today, so it's going to be pretty busy. But yeah, if you're well, then we can get started.
Sounds
Question
good.
one. How did you get into typology?
Okay, one more time.
How did you get into typology?
How did I get into typology? Uh, Through business. I was invited to take part in some business that involved it, and
Hmm.
this is really my first exposure to it in terms of socionics.
So you're fresh-faced and new.
Yeah,
Okay. And are you interested in psychology in general?
I am. Yeah, I'm always fascinated by what people are thinking and what I'm thinking and how those can mesh.
Hmm. Okay, so you say you're going through this for business. What do you work as?
I'm a communications and branding professional. So I help companies figure out who they are and how they want to sound, and how they want to look.
Hmm. So, what would you say is your approach to that business, to making companies sound a certain way? How do you go about doing it?
A lot of it is interview style. So I will get them to tell me about their business and who their audience is, what they want their message to be. A lot of it is listening to what they're saying, but also what they're not saying. Um, and then talking to people within the company at different levels of the company so that I can learn about the company's culture, and then translating all of the kind of uh, ideas about the company into something that reflects well on the company and also sums it all up for people very clearly. So something
Hmm.
authentic.
See, and how do you say your manner is when you're doing this sort of job? Like, how do you try and come across as a person?
I like to be seen as flexible, easygoing, but with strong opinions. So I will have a clear idea of what things like, but I'm also open to interpretation. And I like people to feel like their strengths are being maximized as well, so that they want to work in a team environment. They don't want to, you know, let me do the work and then just pass it off to them later. So I like the interaction with people. Um, so I try to enable as much as possible.
Hmm. So you say you're very much sort of person who keeps things flexible and open, where people need to put their own inputs in, and you able also have your own ideas when you can then contribute.
Yes.
Okay. Um, would you say that you enjoy your work?
Yeah, I like working with people. I like problem solving. I like that it's always different. It's never the same. Um, I like how I can take an idea from inception to execution, and I can see the whole evolution of it. I don't think I would enjoy it as much if I was just doing a part of something and then have to hand it off to someone else. I really like being responsible for everything.
So almost like it becomes almost when you get involved, it becomes almost like your own project, and you like to be almost instrumental in how it progresses over time.
Yeah, I take it very personally.
Hmm. Okay. Is there anything that you'd like to do instead?
Um, what I would like to do instead. I mean, the microcosm of what I enjoy about it could be translated to other things. The interacting with people, leading people through change, um, leaving things better than I find them, something ethical that feels like we're improving things for people, maybe making people's lives better.
Hmm.
Um, all of that uh, could be translated to just about anything. I mean, ideally, I would just volunteer around the world if money wasn't a factor. Um, and I will end up doing that for sure. But right now, I'm able to do that within the context of paid work. So, yeah.
I see. So, in other words, you very much like to help other people. You're someone who very much likes to bring good to your environment around you.
Yeah, yeah. I like to be seen as a professional. I like to be valued for what I can contribute. But then I also really try to step up to the expectations that I set out for people. It's very important for me um, to impress them. So whatever their expectations are, it's very important for me to exceed those expectations.
Ah, so you would say that makes sense for you. You like to, so it's a sense of value for you is how other people feel towards you.
Yes. Yeah. That's a part of it for sure.
I would say that you are someone who is good at setting that sense of feeling, how they feel towards you, and setting how you come across.
Yeah, to a certain extent. I like to be found. I like to be discovered more than I like to go out and tell people. So I do most of my work through word of mouth and almost no marketing. I don't think I've marketed my services at all in this recent venture that I'm in. Um, and that's part of who I am. I like people to already be at a certain stage when I am brought in to do a job, and I want them to already be on the same page as I am in terms of, we're doing something quality, we're doing something that um, is maybe a little different than you're used to, but it will ultimately be worth it. I don't want to have to sell that up front. So
Hmm. I see. How do you behave at home when you're on your own?
um, I try to I try to create efficiencies in my life in general, whether it's work or home life, and so I always try to get things down to kind of a system. So I wake up at a certain time, a general same time, not specific same time, but a general same time, and then from the point that I wake up, it's like there are things that I do in a certain order at generally the same times. Um, so methodical.
I see. So you like a certain amount of order in your life. You like there to be regularities.
Yeah, I like to know what the rules are so I know how I can bend them.
Ah, okay. So, so you're someone who's very comfortable with rules. You value there being certain structures and certain rules in your life. And
Yeah.
then once you know what the rules are, you can kind of find the loopholes in the rules.
Yes, I derive a lot of pleasure from finding loopholes in things, especially when the loopholes result in more efficiency, innovation, um, surprises for people.
Hmm.
It's the kind of thing wherever I'm seeking out a loophole, people are scared out of their minds that I'm doing it, but the outcome is always so much more, so much, it's so worth it that it doesn't matter. But I have to get to the outcome in order for that to actually be appreciated. Otherwise, I'm just seen as like a risk taker.
Oh, okay. So in other words, it's not so you can easily be perceived as a risk taker, and other people may be worried that you may come across this way. But for you, it's more a question of you know what the loopholes are, and you're probably rather confident in those loopholes when you've played upon them.
That's right. Like when I take what other people might perceive as a risk, for me, it's a sure thing.
Mm.
Because
Yes. So you.
when I see the loophole, it's very clear. It's whereas other people maybe don't see the loophole. They're just seeing me going for something that they don't understand. So yeah,
Mm. Yeah, exactly. This is an area where you can be where you're different from others in that you know where these loopholes are, and you can confidently act upon them where others can't.
yeah, I would say that's true.
Mhm. Okay. What are your hobbies and interests?
I enjoy traveling, adventure travel. So picking a place in the world I haven't been to and going there for 4 or 6 weeks and doing a bunch of things while I'm there that often involve things that I haven't tried before. Um, so I don't like going back to the same place over and over, for example. I like a new location, and then when I'm there, I like to do new things um, as much as possible. I also like cooking, um, 80% following the recipe. I also enjoy uh, any kind of like physical activity, so volleyball, scuba diving, going to the gym sometimes,
Hmm.
using my
So,
body as much as possible.
so you say that you like you're a rather adventurous sort of person.
Yeah, like I think that that translates to how I work as well, like finding loopholes, going on adventures. A lot of the time, it's just kind of being able to pivot when things change and being in a position to not only experience those changes, but to know confidently that I can respond to them.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly. Like almost being flexible, being adaptive.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
Okay. And also, there's also a sense of definitely an orientation towards sports. You're good at physical activities as well.
I wouldn't say I'm good at them. I would just say that I enjoy using my body. I'm actually not. It's historically I've been good at sports, but I haven't pursued it. So I tend to gravitate towards just like I think I have a competitive nature, but I actually deliberately gravitate towards social sports. So volleyball, not for points or for winning, but for just the social aspects of it. Um,
Uh, so
so I think
enjoying it with others.
yeah, innately I have the competitive side, but I actually try to suppress it in favor of being more amicable with people.
Hmm.
And maybe that's where the flexibility comes from too, is that I have a very strong sense of what I want things to look like, but I deliberately try to be flexible so that I can kind of counter that.
Hmm. I see. So you're someone who, if you could, so if you wanted to, you could easily push things to be the way you want them to be. But you
Yeah,
have an overriding sense of needing to get on better other people and monitoring how your ambitions to blend in with the group effect.
yeah, yeah. It's kind of like I want to be seen within the group as a high level contributor, as opposed to someone who's high level but not within the group, and it's no one really. I don't want to be that eccentric person. So I try to um, mitigate my eccentricities to be understandable within a group setting, so that I can just be seen as like a high level performer and not someone that people can't talk to.
I see. So you're always trying to be approachable, always trying to be friendly with people.
Yeah, yeah. And so that that's the distinction between maybe who I am innately and who I try to be, who I strive to be. Uh,
Hmm.
I walk that line
I see. How are you with family?
with my family.
Yes.
Um, I I'm a good family member. I check in with people. I maintain the relationships. I try to keep the relationships authentic as much as possible. I have a number of nieces and nephews, and I love kids more than anything. So up until they're in their teen years, I don't find them intimidating. So I'm the favorite uncle, if you will.
Mm. I see. And how are you with friends?
Highly loyal. Um, I tend to introduce friends to other friends, so I have a lot of individual connections that don't necessarily know each other very well. So
Hmm.
I look for opportunities to group people together that I think might get along and doing activities that I think they might enjoy. But I also really value the one-on-one time with friends, and we're very open. So my friends and I, we tell each other that we love each other, guys or girls, it doesn't matter. Um, we're vulnerable around each other, so there's an authenticity to our engagement. And yeah, I mean, That's it.
Okay. How are you with relationships?
Um, with like romantic relationships,
Mm-hmm.
um, I try to be as present as possible, and I'm very touchy-feely. So um, I've got a high degree of emotional sensitivity, and I would even say physical sensitivity. So touching my arm is it's like a trigger. So I like to express myself physically and emotionally.
Mm-hmm.
Be very open.
I see. So in other words, you're very open emotionally and very good at expressing your emotions with people.
Yeah, and actually that actually works against me in corporate settings because if I feel emotionally about something, I don't lodge it well and hold on to it for another day. I tend to just say it in that moment, and my perception of the given emotion in that moment is that my whole life has felt like that. It feels very extreme. So just the challenging myself to like not write emails when I feel something right away to sleep on them. So write them, draft them, and then check them the next day, and then send them, kind of thing. Um, so yeah, I would say that emotionally, it's right out there.
Mm. And so like your natural response is to express how you feel in that instant.
Yeah, and with friends, I do, and it's fine. But in work settings, it's always challenging. But I think, yeah, that's it's. I struggle with the desire to say what I feel in any given moment, regardless of whether it's appropriate or not.
I see. And would you say that you have, so you said that you feel things, you feel a high quality of sensations in your relationship. So you also have this sort of touchy feelingness where it's very much about physical contact and physical bonding as much as the emotional.
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. And would you say that you are usually the instigator of that physical emotional contact, or are you more the reciprocator?
I tend to be the instigator more often, but I like being the instigator. I like being the person that comes up with the ideas. And I don't always give people enough time to instigate themselves because I'm preempting a lot of the time. Like if I sense that someone is about to instigate, I will pre-instigate.
Mm.
so,
Oh, I see. Yes.
so
Gotcha.
finishing sentences and thinking I know what people are thinking, it's all that kind of behavior.
Mm. Okay. What are you good at in life?
I'm pretty artistic. I've got a real aesthetic sensibility, I think. Um, I don't know that I would credit myself with the ability to create good art or whether it's that I am good at channeling the inspiration from somewhere else. I think that it's probably the latter. The same goes for writing. I think I'm a pretty good writer, but again, a lot of what I write, it just comes through me.
Hmm.
So if I was to say what my greatest talent or ability would be, it's not that I'm a good artist or a good writer, it's that I'm a good channeler
Hmm.
of otherworld energy. Um, and in a society where we don't really have a way of kind of turning that into something practical, then I've expressed it through art. I've expressed it through my relationships for sure. But yeah,
I see. So in other words, you kind of get your imagination is very easy channeled through physical actions, not necessarily in a practically beneficial action, but you can easily put it through in art and in your relationships as well. But you
yeah,
generally
like
channel it through physical displays and through emotional displays.
yeah, like to be the simplest way to say it is that I'm a very good channel for ideas, and those ideas can be applied to relationships and practical activities and work activities. I'm always being hit with these moments of inspiration.
Hmm.
So that applies to every aspect of my life.
Okay. What are you bad at in life?
And keeping my thoughts to myself, letting people get all of their ideas on the table, um, being patient, um, planning long term.
Mm, I see. So, would you say that environment where you wouldn't be so good at doing things is seeing how things very much outside of the present may happen in the long run, and also setting aside practical steps for reaching those long-term goals?
Uh, yeah, I do not do that.
You don't do that.
That is
Gotcha.
probably yeah, the steps to achieving a goal. I have my own system of operating, which is in each moment I sense where I'm at and what is the next thing to do. But I don't plan more than a couple steps in advance. I can't plan more than a
Mm.
couple steps in advance.
I see. Someone who's far more perceptive of what's going on immediately around you. You know what's going on around you, and you know how to act in that sort of present moment.
Yeah, but that being said, I'm actually exceptionally good at planning in advance if it's something that's a self-contained time frame. So if I'm going on a trip for 6 weeks, I can plan every single detail of it, like morning, noon, and evening of every day, without problem, because it's a single
Yes.
isolated project. It's an isolated frame of time. But if we're talking about where am I going to be in 5 years, it's all. I don't have a practical route to get there.
Mm. I see. So yeah, exactly. Once you give them something self-contained, where the time is limited, you can then go as much as you want into the little details and getting that all sorted out.
Yeah.
Each little part of a moment, you can then work out how to best appreciate it.
Yeah, and what happens is that planning is around. It becomes a project, right? The vacation becomes a project of which I have to shape it and sculpt it so that I can see what it looks like before I do it, so that ultimately I can measure whether it was what I planned it to be. Um, and not to say there's anything wrong with it going differently. It's just that there's something fun about preconceiving what something will look like and then testing it against reality. Um, but when I think of the 5 years from now, it's like it's an open-ended question because 5 years, it doesn't stop at 5 years. It's 5 years plus everything after 5 years. So it's 5 years till the end of my life, essentially, is the time frame, and it's too large.
Too large for you, yeah. Okay. What brings admiration and criticism from others?
Creativity, humor, compassion, uh, empathy, and concern for others' welfare. That would be it.
What would bring criticism from others? Or of exactly the
uh,
same thing?
I worry a lot. So a high level of stress, anxiety, worry. Um, the aforementioned finishing people's sentences. So kind of the impatient side, I guess.
Hmm.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, there's more for sure. I'm stuck.
That's all right. Maybe we'll come out later. What brings admiration and criticism from yourself, if you can think of it? Or is it exactly the same stuff?
Uh, all of that plus the fact that I feel like I'm in tune with the world's energy,
Mm.
which isn't always a good thing. I think I suffer a lot because of it, but I do feel honored that I have the ability to sense that. I'm on a wavelength that if I watch a news report, I'm there, I'm feeling it the way that people would be feeling it. So it's a lot of emotional energy to watch the news, for example. And it's
Mm.
even more emotionally draining to be in a setting where things are happening around me that I can't control. Um, so an example would be when I was in Belfast during the William of Orange parade at the Wall, and there was a riot that broke out, and there was children in the neighborhood that were in striking distance of bricks and bottles, and I remember like I have to just collect all the kids, but I can't stop the riot, and I can't stop the hate, and I can't stop the conflict, and so there's a lot going on there that I can't mitigate. So
Mm.
being that receptor for energy is yeah, it's a lot
So
of it.
yes,
It's a lot.
so yes, you're so hugely receptive to the sort of emotional energy and how it's conveyed. And it seems as well also your job is very much also about that, choosing ways to convey information in ways that appeal to other people.
Yeah. Yeah,
Mm.
that's exactly it. It's translating people's expectations and hopes and dreams into something that is tangible and authentic.
And yes, also that tangible side where I can sense you almost felt almost helpless in a situation because you couldn't really take action in a situation to actually make it better.
Yeah. I mean, if I can, I do. I mean, I do
Mm.
what I can. But there are situations that are bigger than I am. I can't resolve what's happening in the Middle East, for example, even
Yeah.
though I can imagine why it's happening and I can imagine what is really going on at a basic level.
Mm.
Um, it's the volume of the conflict is so great, and the history is so great that it's even when I reverse engineer the solution in my head, it still involves that you're respected as an authority in that area, and I'm not. So that's a lot of information to have in your head that you don't know what to do with.
Mm. Exactly. It's like you're someone who, as soon as you can, you're good at taking action and making it happen. But you also know where something is bigger than you, and you know that you can't take action in that situation. You can make those judgments.
Yeah, yeah, I definitely make the judgments.
Yeah. Okay. Describe your ideal place, setting, or world. What does atmosphere be like in its surroundings?
The ideal place in the world.
Yeah.
Uh, are we talking about like what the land looks like, or what the house looks like, or are we just talking about like is this an abstract question?
It was exactly people. I often interested in seeing how people approach it, whether it's in an abstract or concrete manner. I like people to try, if they're aware of both sides to it, I like them to try and do both. So starting with the concrete, then going into the abstract.
Okay, so the concrete would be living somewhere where the winters are shorter, close to a beach, um, a great deal of land, like a vineyard, um, village close by, bike distance away, people I know in all the shops, sourced kind of food where I know where it comes from, um, very little of like the corporate world invading into it, if any.
Mhm.
Um, the abstract would be um, self-sustaining. Um, I like the idea of being kind of an innovator in terms of like having solar panels on the land or you know uh, recycled water or whatever, like things that would allow to make a not to just make a good imprint on the planet, but to make a good impression on those around me. I like to lead by example. I feel like there's certain ways. Honestly, I'd like to be a vegetarian because I feel like eating meat is unnatural, but I've been doing it for so long that I'm addicted to it. Um, spiritually connected. So even having access to people um, who are in the realm of what is between the molecules. I think a lot of what we do in our daily lives is a story we tell ourselves. It's a dream that we live, and it's not real. But we learn it from birth, and we're trained in it until we're able to do it, to teach it to others. And so, to be able to dispel a lot of that and to live very authentically would be nice. That's the abstract.
I like how poetically you convey that.
Thank you.
I think you convey it with a great deal of emotional sincerity as well when you speak. Okay.
It's
Okay. And also interesting how you say that you want to almost get away from the corporate world, from the artificial, and you want to go back to the natural.
Yeah, I mean, I have nothing wrong with large companies. What I do have a problem with is when we reach a volume of minds and bodies and concerted efforts, and we lose sight of the fact that we're ultimately supposed to be working together as a human race to move forward,
Mm.
and it becomes about specific ideals or specific goals that can be traced back to like a single person or a single group of people.
Mm.
It's an awful lot of power for a small body of people to have, and if it's directed towards personal gain, then it actually disturbs our ability as a human race to move forward. So it ends up creating more conflict. And
Yes. And so you're very much about almost averting conflict and increasing togetherness and unity.
yeah, I think so.
Okay. Describe a bad place or situation where you feel hopeless, inferior, and insecure. What would be causing these insecurities?
Anywhere that I have to hurt someone's feelings, even if
Mm.
it's for a greater good. Um, any situation where I feel like I'm not seen as I am or as what I can do, where
Mm.
people have typified me as a certain something, and I can't break free of that. That's a stressful place to be.
Mm.
Um, yeah,
Okay. So now the specific areas, primarily we said about how areas where you have to almost disrupt the emotional flow in a way that you don't want to, in a way that is unpleasant,
yeah,
and also in a situation where you've almost failed to convey emotions in the proper way.
yeah, yeah. That's right.
Okay. What do you oh, also the fact you didn't like when you felt typified, like you feel um, your understanding of you was a bit more vulnerable to the idea of logic being applied to you, and that you don't quite know how to reason against it, maybe when it's
Yeah,
applied to you.
like yeah, like taking this test for example. I'm opening myself up to being
Mm.
pigeonholed and to being boxed, and I think that there are some inherent qualities in a person that never change.
Mm.
However, time makes a difference, and it's not to say people change in time, but people, their emotional states, their mental states, reflect better and worse aspects of those stock qualities, depending on when you see them and how you see them, and even given the context of whether the project you're working on is something that feeds you or not. You're either wide-eyed and alert, or you're falling asleep at the wheel, and
Yeah.
it's not to say that that could be typified, that could not be boxed, because it's a complex set of variables.
No, exactly. I am also taking into account that your behaviour. There is a type which I'm already forming in my head for you, but you're not specifically acting how I would stereotypically view that type. Probably because you are probably less comfortable being on camera right now, and I can also explain why you're not acting stereotypical that type, because of how that type would react in this sort of situation if they're not used to it. And it's but I'll go into that later.
Okay.
Um, okay. Last question. What do you feel about the world we live in? What are your opinions, affirmations, and criticisms of the present day and the people in it?
How much time you got?
We got plenty of time. We got my next interview's at 8:30. So sorry, and my next interview's in like just over an hour and 15 minutes, just under.
I mean, honestly, I have this mindset that there's more challenge to overcome with limited thinking. Like there's a lot of limited thinkers, uh, and I'm guilty of this too. Um, People who can only take in so much information, can only put out so much information, and the choices that we make
Mm.
are kind of, they're not really focused. They're, a lot of them are very individualized desires, and there's very little kind of group, like good group think. There's a lot of bad group think. It's hard to
Mm.
find good group think. Um, because when we get to a certain size, as I mentioned before, we as humans we lose the ability to think objectively about about the ripple effect. It just becomes power, and that's intoxicating. The upside is things like, I really like crowdsourcing. I feel like crowdsourcing is like the positive side of that coin. So you could look at Kickstarter, but you could also look at the internet. I mean, the internet is essentially a crowdsourced tool. Aspects like Wikipedia or TED Talks or even Gmail for that matter. They're tools. Twitter are tools that give people the ability to connect in their own way and to form communities. And people take ownership of what, like Twitter when it came out was seen as kind of flip, but it's been since become a very powerful tool in free speech and forming groups of like thinkers around the world. And so, the crowdsourced aspect of Twitter is that the users have defined the value of the product by giving it purpose. And so there's that collective consciousness that looks to grab onto things like the internet and Twitter and Facebook and whatever and shape it for good. So that propelling desire of a collective mindset, that crowdsourced mindset, is for me very optimistic. That given the right tools, people will always gravitate towards working together and coming up with better ways of doing things and solutions for things. To be honest with you, I honestly believe that all the worst things in the world are the product of very simple single minds with varying degrees of power and tools at their disposal, whereas all the good things in the world are the byproduct of these kind of collective gatherings. That's very simplified, but I mean that's kind of how I see it.
Okay. So, those are all the questions. If anyone is watching this, just seeing how you're watching this, we haven't had many viewers today. Oh, well, one viewer, excellent.
Nice.
I'm about to give my analysis, so if people don't want to be affected by my analysis when they're making their votes, they can turn off the video now. Okay. Greg, I have my analysis for you, and it's different to what I originally thought you might have been, based on how you scored in the Socialist.io test. I think that you are very similar to that type, and that you have the same sort of values, and the values that we are definitely connected to. The two of us have we have very similar values in how we like to work. We like this more comfortable, enjoyable, open-ended framework of talking with more focus on positive emotions in our communication. However, I'd say that our strengths and weaknesses are very different. I'd say that your type would be the ethical sensory extrovert, whereas I'd be an intuitive logical extrovert. Now, in other words, whereas I'd be more intuitive and logical, you'd be more ethical and sensory. The main difference is that for you, your leading function, so the main part of how you, your main drive behind your behaviors is extroverted ethics. Essentially how you convey your emotions to other people. How picking up an emotional atmosphere and creating a sense of unity and group togetherness. As you very much said in your values, your idea of good things come from good group think, and the idea of being able to beneficially affect those group emotions through your actions. The fact that you can see so much just by watching the news and feeling the emotions that are coming across shows there's a very, very strong part of who you are, this sense of expressed emotion, and a sense of using those emotions to shape the feelings of the people around you. Now, I got a sense of your, at the same time, an equally strong part of you, but what is not valued, known as the demonstrated function, is extroverted sensation. It's what Ihor leads with, but you seem to subdue more in yourself. This natural assertiveness, this ability to make things happen that you want to happen, and a sense of competitiveness. You're someone who, also knows in certain conversations, you do have this certain slightly subdued level of assertiveness through which you can get what you want. You can push things to happen the way you want it to happen. But for you, you see this as less important in your value system, as making sure things are comfortable and enjoyable and felt in a positive way by the group. So in a way, this is more of a something which you subdue in yourself. It's like I like comparing it to being like a sort of like a grizzly bear, where they come across as more, despite being very, very powerful creatures, they tend to prefer to present the more fluffy side of them, the more enjoyable side of them, and the more aggressive and primal part of them only comes across when absolutely necessary.
Mm.
Now, there's this, as I said, your creative function. So the thing that you often use to help building these positive feelings and moods around you is introverted sensation. So focus on the specifics and the details, on the aesthetics as well, how people perceive things in a sensory manner. You're a very sensorily aware person, as you said in your relationships. You feel the sensory aspects of touch and of physical contact. Also, when you do plan things, you will have a very good attention to those details and making sure those details contribute to this positive, both physical and emotional feeling that you want to create. Now, you also have the things which you have managed to become good at, which you can achieve adequately, but which you haven't yet mastered, would be in terms of extrovert intuition, which is in other words, coming up with lots of ideas and possibilities, brainstorming, something which you aspire to become better at, and you try and project to other people this idea of lots and lots of possibilities and pursuing possibilities in a rather open-ended way. However, this is something which is behind your ethics and your sensation, but it's something which you definitely want to increase in and try to become better at. At the same time, you also have this role of being more productive, of being more efficient. And the idea of extrovert logic as a role function is the idea that although you're far more interested in how people are feeling, you nevertheless are able to put on this role of being productive, of being efficient when you're expected to.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, your weakest side would be in, first of all, introverted logic. So, as a suggestive function is called, it's something which you kind of desire more from others, and which you respond very well to from others, and that would be the idea of rules and orders and systems that you try and implement in your day, a regular order. You try to wake up and you try and eat at a certain time. You then go and do activities at certain times. Shows that you appreciate the idea of a sense of order in your life, and it seems to complement your sense of group and community. Now, finally, your weak point is introverted intuition. So this is more of your painful weakness, your vulnerable function, in other words. And that's essentially time and where things are going in the long term, and where it's gone from far off in the past. So essentially what's not in the present day. You tend to perceive things in terms of how they're happening now, and you're very good at acting in the here and now. But as soon as it's something that's way off in the future, you feel far less secure in what you're able to predict about it and how we're meant to act according to it. As a result, you far prefer a limited time frame in which you can plan things in detail, and you can do that. But when it comes to someone asking you, where will you be in a certain number of years, and you immediately find that you don't know, and you're not quite comfortable giving an answer where you may be in a few years, or just the idea of it, you find more disturbing. And so especially attaching both what is slightly weak and unvalued, so practical steps used specifically to plan into the long term, is an area which you would find to be a particularly weak and disconcerting activity. So overall, I'd say that your strengths are in essentially influencing people in the here and now and creating good, positive environments. Then utilizing a sense of your focus on relationships and aesthetics to support that. Then you seem to have been able to achieve to a certain adequate level the idea of creating lots of ideas and possibilities and working in a productive, functional manner. And then your areas of weakness being in ordering and structuring, and specifically in long-term things, how things are turning around to long-term. I also find very interesting, now the reason why, now someone of this type would usually be imagined to be highly emotionally expressive, even on this video. But this is where I explain why you are not acting stereotypically to this area. In fact, people who are extroverted ethics leading are very, very concerned with how they are coming across to people. The most important thing to them is how they come across, and they often perceive their value in how other people are perceiving them. So in a situation where you're literally on a video and having someone judge from your behavior how you might be, that's going to be an incredibly uncomfortable environment for someone of that particular personality. In fact, other people of also extroverted ethics leading have actually had a very distressful periods trying to prepare just to come on this interview. And so that might explain why you're a lot more reserved and a lot more cautious here than you are in open communication, where it's just where no one's trying to type you or trying to use logic, which already, introverted logic specifically, which is something which you yourself aren't very strong at, but you kind of need in a beneficial way. And you're worried that that thing which you're not so secure with could be used against you based on how you're expressing your emotions to be. So as a result, you're far more reserved, far more cautious, far more careful. It's why your responses earlier on were also rather short compared to other people who are more comfortable. In fact, you were trying to be almost as careful as possible how you're coming across. However, later you showed yourself a lot more, certainly in the last few questions, because that's when you started being more comfortable. So yes, overall I'd say that ethical sensory extrovert makes sense. And I can see why you may have come across as an ILE, intuitive logical extrovert, because specifically what you aspire to be is what ILEs naturally do, as like their main function. Plus you have the similar values as one. They both have what's known as alpha values, which is like this almost childlike enjoyment of lots of possibilities and possibilities and theoretical structures with warm, comfortable group environments. And then also being an extrovert, so being proactive rather than reactive. Another thing, you said that your temperament would be extroverted rational. Essentially, you're good at actually making your environments how you think they ought to be, specifically in a manner. So as I say, when I say how you're instigator or reciprocator, you're definitely the instigator. You kind of proactively make it how you want it to be.
Right. That makes sense.
Excellent. So that would be my analysis. So yes, so it's bye from me.
And bye from Greg.